If you're anything like me, then a few months ago, you've got Claude or ChatGPT open in a tab and you've watched a few videos, you've sort of started to use it, but you know that you're barely scratching the surface. So when I found Claude Cowork, I got a little bit excited. I made a bunch of mistakes and I've made those so that hopefully you don't have to. So here are 5 things that I wish someone had told me on day one. Now, before I get into the 5, let me give you this idea that really holds this whole thing together. And this is what actually made it click for me. And it made everything else make a whole lot more sense. So regular chat is where you go to talk to AI. Meanwhile, Cowork is where you actually go to do the work. Chat answers you and Cowork works for you. So here's what I mean. In a normal chat, you're kind of hands-on. You copy something in, you paste something out, you download a file, you make some edits, you re-upload it. You're kind of running back and forth between carrying stuff between you and this AI conversation. Meanwhile, inside of Cowork, it has its own hands. It can reach into your folder on your computer. It can touch the files. It can edit the files and it can run the steps itself. So keep that in the back pocket. In chat, Claude is the brains and you're the actual hands. In Cowork, it's got its own hands. It can work for you and do so much for you as well. And every one of these 5 things is really just proof of that concept. So let's get into it. Now, the first thing, and this is honestly the thing that surprised me the most, is that Cowork works with the actual files sitting on your computer. And it's almost like this agent that has access to your computer, which is kind of wild when you think about it. And I know what you might be thinking, because I kind of thought it too. Brian, I can already upload files to the projects in Claude. What actually makes this different? So let me show you what I mean by this, because it really is bigger than it sounds. When you upload a file to a project, think of it as uploading it to a filing cabinet. Claude can read it, but that's all. It's a copy that you handed over that's kind of like frozen in time, and it's frozen the moment you uploaded it. So if you go to change that file on your computer later, here's the deal. The project has no idea. It's still looking at the old copy until you remember to upload it again. And so that's the problem with projects inside of the chat system. Cowork, though, is very different. It's not reading a copy in a filing cabinet. It's sitting at your actual desk, working in those actual files and handing them back to you when they're finally done. So there are 3 very important things that come from this project feature. And then one of those things is it's always a live file. And so what I have inside of my projects is a voice file that tells Claude Cowork exactly how I write and how I speak. And what I've noticed is when it starts to veer off or create something that I wouldn't actually create myself, I give it an update and say, hey, I actually don't like the way that sounds. Let's remove that from the vocabulary and how I write so that the next time I prompt it to start writing for me, it's actually got an updated voice and it's learned from the past conversation. And so that benefit is I didn't have to download the file, make the changes myself, and then re-up the file. I could just tell Claude Cowork and it's updated in real time. And number 2, this actually goes both ways. So a project lets Claude read and Cowork lets it read and write with the file back. So whether or not I'm telling Claude Cowork to edit the file, or if I just go into the file myself and make an edit, it has access to those updates. And number 3, it works on your real stuff at scale. So it's the whole folder, it's the whole wireframe, and files that might be too big to paste into your chat conversations. It's like having access to 20 different documents at once, renaming, reorganizing, cleaning all of it up. And that's a workspace, not really something you have to re-upload. It's just one area that has access to all of the conversations. Now, to be fair, and I always want to make sure that I make these kinds of notes, is that a project inside of the Claude chat function does win in one thing, is that you can get into it from any device, whether it's your phone or your laptop or an iPad or anything like that, because it lives in the cloud. So Cowork is tied to your computer that you're working on. So it's not better in literally everything, but it is better at doing the actual work on your actual files. So that's a trade. And for me, the trade is worth it every single time. One last caveat is that Claude Cowork did release something called Dispatch that does allow you to work in your Cowork from your phone. All you have to do, though, is make sure that your Claude Cowork is open at the device that you're using it installed on. Now, the second thing I wish I knew when I just got started using Claude Cowork is that you can connect so many tools to it. And honestly, this like blew my mind of the capabilities because there's so much. You can connect your actual tools like QuickBooks or Gmail or your calendar or Slack or Canva, or the list goes on. There's so much that you can get connected to Claude Cowork immediately. And here's why that matters so much, especially if you run a small business. Most AI gives you generic advice based off of whatever the internet says or whatever it has access to. Now that you have Claude Cowork and you have these projects that has access to all of your files that you give it access to, and the tools that you've got connected to, whether that is QuickBooks, for instance, or Gmail, it's actually giving you advice based off of real data inside of your business. Cowork can look at the real numbers and actually work with them. So, I mean, picture this. Let's say instead of asking the question, how do I follow up on overdue invoices? It's actually this idea that I can go to Claude Cowork and say, go look at who actually owes me money inside of QuickBooks and draft reminder emails for me to match to each of these customers based off of the conversations we've had. So instead of like, what should I post this month? It's look at what actually sold and tell me what to push. That's the completely different thing. It's not advice anymore. It's the work. And really that's only possible because it's plugged into real stuff, real tools. And in a normal chat window, you have to export a bunch of reports and give it as much information as you can, and also update it on your business and give it context on a daily basis versus this Claude Cowork has access to everything. Now, the third thing I wish I knew earlier is that Claude Cowork actually remembers your business and every task gets better over time. Now, you might be thinking, doesn't regular Claude or even ChatGPT already have a memory? And it does, both of them absolutely do, but this is way different in a way that really matters. And I'm gonna show you exactly what I mean by this. So regular memory inside of something like Claude Chat is almost like having a bunch of sticky notes around in a room or around your desk. And sure, it's helpful to kind of look and find the notes, but that's not something that's visible for you to see. It's just something that Claude has on the back end. On the other side of that, Claude Cowork's memory is a real notebook that's sitting inside of your folder. And here's the part that I keep coming back to is that all of these notes, they're just files that sit on your computer. They're plain documents that you can open and that you can edit, or you can tell Claude to edit as well. Now I'll show you exactly what I mean. This is my Claude Cowork, and on the right-hand side, it says on your computer. These are the files that are housed on my computer that Claude Cowork has access to. And what's really sweet about these is I've got a business MD, content pillars MD, story bank MD, and voice MD. Never mind the MD, that's just the type of file it is. It's called markdown file, and that's just how it reads. But what's really cool about this is Claude Cowork has access to these and gives updates over time. And so what does that mean? This voice MD is a file that is used to create my voice, whether I'm writing a reel caption or scripting out a video or writing an email. This is my voice in real time. And anytime I want to make an update, I just say, hey, Claude Cowork, let's change how that works. I don't like the way that that feels. And it makes the updates for me. Now, the story bank was really sweet because anytime I tell a story or I'm talking about my kids and the app that I built them, now it houses all of those stories in one place so that later on, if I want to create an email and I want to bring in my own personal story, it has access to it to help me write those stories in my voice later on. Now, the content pillars is just an understanding of how I make content and the types of content that I want to make online. And then finally, business is exactly what it sounds like. It's the idea of this is what I do, this is why I do it, here's my people that I'm working with, and here's the people I want to work with as well. And so all of these build out the memory of Claude Cowork, and I wish I knew that sooner. Now, the fourth thing I wish I knew sooner was the idea of skills and plugins, how they work and what they're actually used for. So before I get into the skills, what I want to do is show you the plugins first. So in Cowork, you're going to click on Customize. And in Customize, you're going to look at personal plugins. You can click this plus sign because you probably don't have any at the moment, and you're going to browse plugins. And what's so cool about this is that Anthropic and partners here have created a ton of plugins that you can just grab and install to your Cowork. And let me show you what I mean by this. There's one called Small Business, and I have a whole video about this, but let's assume you want to use the Small Business one. You would just click on this and you would install it to your Cowork. I already have mine installed, so that's why it doesn't show that I can install it. But what happens is now you have a plugin, and this plugin shows you a ton of different connectors and skills that you can attach to your Cowork. I'm going to click on skills because I think that's really important here. And what's so cool about these skills is they're basically tasks that Anthropic or you or somebody else has created that complete these tasks whenever you use them. And here's what I mean. I'm going to take a look at the customer pulse. And let's assume that you have HubSpot and you want to take a look at the disputes, tickets, email threads, all of those things that are happening inside of HubSpot, and create a report for you. There's a skill built specifically for that. And all you have to do is say, hey, Claude Cowork, using the customer pulse, can you create a report for me so I can see what's happening in the business? And it knows exactly what to do because it's a skill. And all you have to do is call that skill. And let's say you want to do the invoice chaser. Now, the invoice chaser here is really cool because what happens is it pulls the AR, which is accounts receivable, aging report, and it scores those customers by the payment history, and it drafts a tone matched reminder for each overdue invoice. So earlier when I mentioned, man, you can just tell Claude Cowork to take a look at QuickBooks and create some emails for you. This is how it has created skills based off of these needs that you might have as a small business. Now, number 5, and this is one of my favorites, is that Claude Cowork can run whether you're here or not. And what I mean by that is you can set up scheduled tasks that run on a weekly basis or daily, and it just depends on what you have it set up to do. And so I want to show you something that I have that I think is pretty cool. So taking a look at my Cowork, you can see that there's this item that says scheduled. I'm going to click on it, and it's the morning AI content brief. And what happens is I talk about AI, right? And so instead of me having to go out and do research every day to see what's happening in the world of AI, I have a scheduled task. It will go out and do research for me. And let me show you what I mean. This content brief here is showing you something that it just ran this morning. And what's so cool about this is it shows me a list of what's new in AI with the supporting resources where it's finding this information. And then it helps me just come up with content ideas so that I can record these on my phone and use these as resources to be able to record it in my voice. And here's what's so cool. This scheduled task is essentially a skill that says every morning, go out and do research on AI, come back to me with content ideas for both Reels and LinkedIn posts, as well as YouTube video ideas. And then it gives me all of the resources as well. And it doesn't just stop there. It also calls my voice MD file that we talked about earlier, and it writes it in my own voice. So now I've got all of this content ideas, and it happens every single morning so that I can actually make content very fast and in my own voice and around ideas that I actually want to make content for. Because that's the other thing is that you saw I have a content pillar markdown file as well. And it calls that file to say, hey, what kind of content could we create with this data that we found through the research in the morning? And so now that I've gone through the 5 things I wish I knew sooner, you might still have some questions. And so I'm going to go through the FAQ section of this video. So the first question is, do I need to be technical to use this? And honestly, no, you don't need to be technical at all. It might seem overwhelming at first because you've never done it before, but so is riding a bike, right? Like it was hard at the first step, but just because it was hard at the first doesn't mean it's going to be hard day 2, day 3, day 4, because what you're going to do is you're going to learn, you're going to practice, and you're going to get better with every single prompt. And here's the best part of this is as long as you know how to speak, you know how to do this. It's as simple as that. Is all you have to do is be able to give Claude Cowork the necessary steps and tell it what you want it to do, and it can do all of that for you because there's such an incredible community around it that's been able to create skills and create connectors between the tools that you use. So do you need to be technical? No, you just need to know how to talk. Question number 2, is my stuff safe if it's reading my files? So what's really cool about Claude Cowork is it only has access to what you've given it. So it doesn't have access to your entire computer. It just has access to the folders that you have given it inside of the project. And what's also good about this is it's really just plain text, right? You're really only giving it plain text files that it can read and that it can write as well. And so it's as safe as you make it, right? As long as you've just given it the information it needs, then it's totally acceptable. And what's also great about this, especially when you're giving it connectors and tools, is it will not do anything without your permission. So it will ask you before it does something. So if you're giving it access to QuickBooks, it will actually ask you before it does anything inside of QuickBooks. And you actually have to tell it to do something inside of QuickBooks as well. Will it, send emails for you? No, it doesn't send emails for you, but it will draft those emails, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with the invoice chaser. It will write the emails and create the draft in your Gmail, but it won't send them on your behalf. Now, the final question is, do I have to set up all 5 of these in one day? No, you definitely don't. In fact, I don't think you should. It's a learning experience and you're going to do this slowly over time. I would just start by simply creating a project and then having it understand your business and say, hey, Claude Cowork, I'd like for you to create a business MD file or just a business file to understand my business. Can you ask me all of the questions you need in order to create this project? And when you do that, now it's got access to it. So I would ask it to do it for you, but ask it to interview you through the process. And that way you can get the most out of it. So those are all 5 real files on your computer, real tools that are connected, memory that learns over time, skills that you can install and that you can build, and then work that continues to run whether you're at the computer or not. But if you take one thing from this entire video, take this. In chat, Claude is the brains and you're the hands. In Cowork, it's got its own hands. It can work for you. And everything I just showed you is just really proof of that. And here's what I'd leave you with. You don't have to do all 5 of those today. Just pick one, point it at the folder, connect the tool, give one real job in your actual business, and that's it. Just do one thing and get started with it today. Because the thing I've learned the hard way is that you don't learn how to use Claude or AI by watching more videos. You learn it by doing the work. So go do the thing.